Hi there, this is Lisa Becerra, certified aromatherapist, and this is my second video in the 2021 Safety with Common Sense series. In this video, we're highlighting potency. In the first video, we talked about the importance of purity of your essential oils you're using in and around your family. And I hope from that video you took the importance of ensuring you're using an essential oil from a trusted source that provides you access to a gas chromatogram or a certificate of analysis, ensuring the purity of your oil, that it hasn't been diluted or adulterated in any form, and everything in the oil is something that was derived from the plant that they processed in order to cultivate and manufacture the essential oil. Now, the reason why purity is important has a lot to do with the potency of these essential oils. And potency is kind of a two-pronged spoke here. The first prong of the potency is simply the fact that these oils are incredibly potent. In the plant that the oils are derived from, essential oils play a major role in controlling the growth of the plant, in healing properties within the plant, and in the metabolic functions. So the essential oils basically help the plant make really good decisions in what to do and how to do it in order for the plant to thrive in its environment. And there's only minute traces of essential oils found in the plants. And when we consider the plant diversity, of our world, and the amount of plants that are producing essential oils that we can actually extract, it's very, very limited. So and that's not to say that the other plants don't have essential oils in them. It's just to say that it is not cost effective to try to distill these oils from these plants because there is such a little amount of the oils within them. That is because they're so potent. Now, to give you an idea about the potency of these plants, the essential oils derived from the plants, it takes 45 lemon rinds in order to manufacture 15 milliliters of lemon essential oil, which means 14 drops of lemon essential oil has the same amount of essential oils as found in one whole lemon peel. Okay, that's pretty darn potent. 14 drops is less than 1 milliliter, and 1 milliliter is one of these guys, right, going up to here. So 14 drops is actually less than 3/4 of a milliliter. So that much lemon essential oil is the equivalent of the essential oils found in one lemon rind. To give you another perspective of this, drinking 28 cups of peppermint tea is the equivalent of ingesting 1 drop of peppermint essential oil. Now you can do that using soluble and dispersing it directly in your water, or mixing it in with honey and drinking it with a regular tea. So that's really, really potent. 1 drop of peppermint oil is the equivalent of drinking 28 cups of a peppermint tea. And that's because even the dry material of the peppermint tea leaves, the peppermint leaves within the tea, contain essential oils in them. So you can see that it's important to know that we have a pure oil because these oils are so potent. They pack a very big bang with a very little punch. Okay? Now looking at potency, the other prong of potency has to do with therapeutic effects. When we say something is very potent, a medication is very potent, it means that it has a very strong therapeutic effect to it. And the essential oils get their therapeutic effect by the chemical constituents found in them, the organic chemicals within the essential oils. Now, some essential oils have very few, a few essential oils have only a few chemical constituents. Most of them have hundreds of chemical constituents in them. So the most popular, most well-known essential oil that has very minimal chemical constituents is going to be wintergreen. Wintergreen is the essential oil responsible for that Bengay smell, right? If you have a grandparent who has used Bengay, you'll notice that smell in the Bengay is caused by wintergreen. If you smell wintergreen, it's going to take you right back, to grandma putting that on her back or soaking her feet, right? And the chemical constituent responsible for that is methyl salicylate. Wintergreen is made up of anywhere from 96% to 99.5% of this methyl salicylate. And I am reading this from the Tisserand and Young Essential Oil Safety book, where they break down specifically the major chemical components of these essential oils, the major chemical constituents. I'll use that interchangeably, so that we know the potency, we know the therapeutic effect we're going to see when we use this oil. So because we know that methyl salicylate is a nerve blocker, it blocks the pain receptors, we know when we use wintergreen at a 99.5% concentration of this methyl salicylate, that it is going to be very, very effective in blocking pain. Okay, now the other parts of the other chemical constituents within wintergreen are working in synergy to make this oil effect even better. So some companies may give you a product labeled as wintergreen essential oil, but it only has this methyl salicylate in it without all those other components, and therefore it's not going to be as effective in blocking pain because it doesn't have that synergistic effect. So to give you kind of an idea of somewhat of the possible, intricacies of an essential oil, we can look at vetiver. And vetiver, I'm just going to show you up here. You can see there's actually two whole columns, well, almost two whole columns of what's considered a major chemical constituent within the oil. And that's because there's no one chemical constituent that is making up the bulk of the oil. So zizanol, also known as chisimol, makes up anywhere from 3.4% to 13.7% of this essential oil. And everything else is making up another minute percentages. And then aside from there, you're going to have trace chemical constituents. So vetiver is a very complex essential oil. It's one that is not very easily manufactured, diluted, or adulterated because it is a very complex oil. So if you're using something like vetiver, it's very common that what you're using is a pure vetiver oil. Whereas if you're using something like wintergreen, it would be easier to possibly say that there's a possibility of not having as pure of an oil. But then as you can see with vetiver, where it has the chisimul at anywhere from 3.4% to 13.7%, that's a 10% difference within that first major chemical component. So this is where the other aspect of potency is coming in, because what accounts for that variance, right? What makes there be this 10% difference within this essential oil? And that lies in a couple different things. So one, it lies in the actual cultivation of the vetiver itself. Where is it grown? And how is it grown? Is it grown organically? Is it grown wildly? Is it cultivated using pesticides and herbicides? Is it cultivated in the ideal soil conditions that have the proper nutrients for the vetiver plant to grow? And this is a grass. Vetiver, it's distilled from the rhizome, but it's a grass plant. And so then you have to think about, is it getting adequate water? Is the water suitable to the plant? Does it have the adequate minerals in order to continually provide the plant with those trace minerals that it needs, so it's not all being taken up through the root structure of the ground soil, right? Then you have to think about, does it have the adequate moisture or dryness in the air that it needs? Does it have the proper sunlight, and consistency there too? Is it at the proper elevation? So all of these things play a part in the chemical component, the chemical makeup of the plant itself. And then when we distill that plant, or we cold press that plant material, there's going to be factors that play into the chemical makeup as well. So if the plant received the ideal chemical makeup due to being grown in ideal conditions, having the ideal watering, being in the ideal place without pesticides, herbicides, and being able to thrive naturally within its environment, and then it is harvested at the wrong time, then it's not going to have as much essential oil in it. If it's harvested at the right time, it's going to have more. So for instance, jasmine used in aromatherapy is best harvested in a very short time window, and that's between dew fall and dew evaporation. So if jasmine is harvested prior to the dew falling, it's not going to have as high of an oil output, and it's not going to have the same chemical components versus jasmine that is harvested, it's plucked directly when the dew is present on the flower petals. And then also there's the secondary consideration is, are they just harvesting the flowers, or are they harvesting the stems and the leaves? So for instance, something like clary sage is often harvested from the flowering tops of the plant and not just the flowers. Whereas if it was harvested just from the flowers, you're going to have a different potency to the oil, a different beneficial effect, because the oils found in the leaves are different from the oils found in the flowers, are different from the oils found in the branches, because the plant is keeping these oils in these different concentrations because they're doing different things within the plant, right? The branches and the stems are bringing, they're transporting, right? So they're transporting and they're protecting. The leaves primarily are involved in energy production, right? The flowers are primarily involved with reproduction of the plant, right? It's ready to flower, open up, be harvested, be fertilized, and then now the fruit is blossoming. So each part of the plant is holding different amounts of these chemical constituents, different amounts of these oils, and there's actually different oils derived from different parts of the plant. So the orange tree gives us orange, it gives us petitgrain, so it gives us orange from the rind, it gives us petitgrain from the stems of the orange tree, and it gives us neroli from the orange blossoms. So these three oils have very different chemical constituents, and it's important that we know what oil we're using and why. And then on top of that, there are even sometimes the same plant, identical plants that have vastly different chemical makeup makeup. For instance, thyme has different chemical types when it comes to essential oils. There is thyme thymol, which is very potent antimicrobial, and then there's thyme linalool, which has antimicrobial effects, but it is more calming, more sedating, and has more pain applications because it has a high linalool content and not a high thymol content. So it's important to know there's going to be these differences. And how does this play out when we're using essential oils? It can play out especially if you're using, let's say I bought lavender from my health food store and I opened it, and the first couple weeks I'm using it, it's calming me down. I really love its effect. You know, I'm sleeping better, and then I'm not seeing the effects as well. And then I'll buy one at another place that I pick up, and it doesn't even, you know, calm me down. It kind of is irritating me. And then I buy another one from somewhere else, and I'm having this effect of the calming, sedating. You know, I stubbed my toe, I put it on, it helped me with the pain, so on, etc. If we're not being consistent with the manufacturer that we're using, then we can see these variances in how our body's responding, because each manufacturer is having their own practices regarding how they're harvesting their plants, how they're growing their plants, how they're distilling their plants, what material they're distilling their essential oils from, and that all affects the potency of the essential oil, which is why it's important to see your gas chromatogram or certificate of analysis and compare it to what's being said. So if I'm saying that lavender is going to be calming, sedating, soothing, and have a very good analgesic effect, then I might be talking about French lavender, which has a much higher linalool content than another lavender. Okay, so this is where potency plays a big deal in the beneficial effects that we're seeing, and why it's important if you're using an oil and you've seen a really good effect, and all of a sudden the effect is not there within the same bottle, very likely you have an adulterated or diluted product, probably an adulterated product, and the adulterants have now affected the chemical makeup, and it's no longer going to be effective. If that's the case, I suggest you stop using the product, and go with a different manufacturer that you trust and know, and try it again. If you're using a product from a manufacturer and you've used the entire bottle, and then you've replenished it with another bottle, and you're not seeing the effect, or you're seeing a better effect, then more than likely there's the variance within batch to batch. And you can contact the manufacturer and say, this is the batch number I have, this is what I'm seeing. Is there a difference within this product versus the previous batch that I used that can, you know, correlate with the responses that I'm seeing? And any good manufacturer is going to talk to you about that. They're going to look at it with you, and they're going to work out that with you and have notes within the product about that from previous people calling in. So it's really important as users of essential oils that when we see this variance from batch to batch, we are notifying our manufacturer, and that when we look at our gas chromatogram from batch to batch, if we see variances in it, we're able to say, okay, like within the vetiver, if we got a batch of vetiver and it had the 13% of the chisimol in it, and then we get another batch and it only has 7%, then we're going to adjust the amount of vetiver we're using within our blends if this is a chemical constituent that we want to have elevated, right? If we want to have that higher effect. So these are all things to keep into consideration when we're using essential oils. And for safety purposes, again, it's going to be understanding that these are very potent oils, and the potency is based on the chemical constituent makeup. So knowing you have a pure oil is going to help ensure that the chemical makeup is ideal. So when we're using these, we're seeing the beneficial effects we're looking for. If we're not seeing them, we should stop using the product, try a different manufacturer, or go back to the manufacturer and ask for that certificate of analysis or gas chromatogram so we can identify that yes, this is that oil, and for whatever reason, this oil is not the oil I should be using because my body is not responding to it effectively. So I hope all this makes sense. I hope it was a nice refresher for some of you and kind of layered in a little bit more detail and more information. Next video we do, we'll be talking about dilution, because again, these are very potent oils. There is almost, in most everyday common circumstances, there is almost never a need to use the oils straight, pure. So we're going to be talking about that and how that plays a role in preventing adverse reactions. I hope you've enjoyed this again, and have a blessed day, and oil away. Bye now.